can you believe it? Last year's grand finalist, Brisbane and Collingwood are both 0-2 after 3 big games of footy today. There is a heap to analyse and talk about and argue about. And great to have Lee Montagna and David King alongside us.
Hello, Kingy. How are you? Good.
Well, there's plenty happened today. It was the D's flying, of course. Port Adelaide too good for the West Coast Eagles, and Fremantle coming from behind to beat Brisbane. So, where are we going to start? The ladder, of course.
Yes.
Even though it's a bit all over the shop.
Yeah, the asterisks are meaning the teams that have got a game in hand, so that have only played the one game. So you can see there, the Gold Coast Suns have been the real good story to start the year. A couple of really impressive wins.
Both Sydney teams 2 and zip.
I think that might be a sign of things to come too.
Yeah.
You'd think that'd hold for a while, wouldn't you?
I think so. Yeah, they look to be the 2 form teams of the competition, absolutely, at the moment. And a couple of big winners there as well, Melbourne included.
Yeah, certainly is. So is it top 8 set, would you say?
Come on, Hardo. This is going to confuse me for a while. We're going to have to wait till about round 6 or 7.
That'll be
until everyone's had the buys out the way, and then we can get an even look.
That'll be an exciting round, won't it, when we finally have everyone have played the same number of teams. All right, time for the first crack, and Joey.
Well, we have to go to the game that we just watched, the Fremantle-Brisbane Lions game. And for me, my first crack is about the Brisbane Lions. And are there early signs of cracks appearing within the Brisbane Lions team? And the reason why I say that is because I don't think premiership contenders, genuine premiership contenders, concede a run of 8 goals in a game. They're better than that. Brisbane Lions have now done it 2 weeks in a row. And Lachie Neale really put it on the agenda during the week when he spoke about it. It was great that he was so open, and Chris Fagan didn't like how it was reported, but he did mention there was selfishness and that players were basically shitting on their teammates. So what was the response today? Because, again, they conceded a run of 8 goals. From the late stages of that first quarter, it was an 8-goal-to-zip run. They went from 25 points up to being well and truly down, and they couldn't stop it. So I'm starting to question, where's the on-field leadership? What does it look like? Why is this happening 2 weeks in a row? I've already spoken about the game management and their situation, their ability to do that, which is becoming an alarming trend for me, which we'll get to in a minute. But I just think it's really interesting to see where they go to from here. They've got a bye coming up, so they've got a chance to regroup, but then they play Collingwood at the Gabba. And Zip 3 is a bit of a different story to Zip 2. So they would be starting to ask some serious questions amongst themselves.
All right, well, let's hear from Chris Fagan first of all, because, as you said, it was after kicking the first 4 goals, they then conceded the next 8, and for Chris Fagan, that is new ground.
2 weeks in a row now, the middle part of the game have been a problem to us, and I've never encountered that with this group before, so I've got a little bit of work to do. We've been 0-2 before and made top 4. It's a long way away, but we just have to think clearly about what's going on and try and find some solutions. So
2021 they were 1-3 in a similar situation after dropping the first 2 games they played. Collingwood and beat them in that big Easter game, and then last year they were 1-2 as well. So it's not unfamiliar, but it's not ideal.
No, it's not ideal, and it's more the way they've lost these 2 games. And the other part of it I wanted to ask is, what have they learnt? And I raised this at the start of the year because I thought this would be a big summer for a team that's been at the pointy end of the ladder for a long time. Their attention to detail and understanding what they need to do in any given situation should be at the top of the tree. They should just know, and they weren't able to get it done against Carlton, and we showed some vision. And again, I want to show some vision from time on, because let's go back to the grand final. In the grand final, there were some pivotal moments that they weren't able to get it done. And this is today, first of all. So I want to show you today. This is just before half-time when Fremantle have been getting a run on. Brisbane have got +2 behind the ball. So they've got 2 players. You don't need 2 behind the ball late in the quarter. And they play a one-on-one defence. So you look at the Brisbane forwards up the ground, they're going to go and play on their men, and they leave 2 Fremantle players free through the middle. So this is costing them another goal in time on. They conceded 8-0 in time on in the first 3 quarters of today's game. I'm not quite sure what they were doing in this situation. I don't know how they ended up from going from +2, Kingy, to then being 5-on-5.
And no Harris Andrews there in the critical last 9 minutes of the second term. So if you're organising a +1, he's your man. So you've got to orchestrate and manage through the course of games to ensure that he has his break, if he needs one, in the middle of the second quarter, not the end.
So the reason why I bring this up, this was just before half-time, the exact same moment in the grand final. Brisbane, for some reason, got stuck with +2 behind the ball. You don't need, and you should never have +2 in a situation from a stoppage in the middle of the ground. Guess what? Collingwood had 3 players in the corridor, and we know about the Jack Crisp goal that gave them some momentum right on half-time. And again, they conceded 5-1 in time on in those first 3 quarters of the grand final after controlling big portions. So what have they learnt? How have they not gone to work on this over summer and know exactly what they have to do in these situations? It's baffling. They've got some work to do. they've got time to sort it all out, but they'd want to start to get a move on.
One thing that caught my attention was what Chris Fagan said in the pre-season, that they didn't do as many full match simulations as what they've done in the past. They did a lot more of the smaller numbers, 8v8 and that sort of thing. That was interesting.
Yeah, I think so. When all the teams, and King, you've been watching all the pre-season training, a lot of them now are doing scenario-based situational training off the back of what Collingwood did.
Just getting too much wrong. I mean, McKenna injured today, so it's hard to talk about him in a long-term view, just a short-term view. But he's not Kitty Coleman. Zorko is the man. We've all talked about it for a couple of weeks now. Eventually they put him back. He looked terrific in the last quarter. But the game was blown.
Yep.
You've got to allow Harris Andrews to be that guy. Now, if you're not going to give him the keys and you're going to have him off the ground, then that's on you as a coach's box. There's just too many things that are slightly off at Brisbane. We said at the start of the year, I think 2023 was the year they were there to win it.
Yeah.
And they've left it on the deck. They've got an unbelievable list. But right now, everything's clunky. Why is it clunky?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no easy answer for it. And we're not coming at Chris Fagan, we're not, because there's a group that come up with the way you want to play and how you want to manage games and those sorts of things. But in the absence of Lachie Neale, they were rudderless.
It looked like a big absence, didn't it?
Massive. Got smashed. And I mean, to allow Caleb Sarong to do what he did and have 46 disposals and dominate that game. And they did put Devon Robertson to him during the third quarter, but the damage had probably already been done through that second quarter as well. So, yeah, some questions they need to ask themselves.
It is unique, isn't it? A bye so early in the year, and they probably need it, and then they can recalibrate and get ready for Collingwood. What a match that's going to be in a couple of weeks. The Pies, which we'll get to meet the Saints.